Have you ever wanted to rebel against your parents or your teachers? Well, under the Cultural Revolution in Communist China, Chairman Mao actually encouraged young people to rebel against their teachers, their parents, people of authority. Now, before you go and get your pitchforks, know that this did not end very well at all. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Communist China in the 20th century. And when we left China, they just had this revolution. The communists were kind of in charge. Obviously, the Japanese are going to come in and out because of the wars. After World War II, the communists are the ones in power. And at first they have this alliance with the Soviet Union, with Russia. Let's spread communism so it will economically benefit us. Well, then they disagree on how a communist government should be run, and so they split that alliance. Chairman Mao is going to institute this policy much like Stalin's 5-year policy called the Great Leap Forward. It was an effort to industrialize with small-scale projects like putting furnaces in people's backyard in order to harvest steel. Did not work out well at all. Its goal was to industrialize China. It's going to be economically disastrous for China, and you're going to have a large number of deaths due to starvation, much like we see in the 5-year plan under Stalin. Women in communist China were expected to work, but we still have this long history of patriarchal society, and so they were expected to take care of everything at home as well, and so keep their traditional role while working, and so there's kind of this added stress load to women, but because the women are working, they do have access to more rights, and so we see a breakdown of that patriarchal society. But historically, because we've had it for so long, the influence of that patriarchal society isn't going away. So, during like the 50s, 60s, 70s, communism is dying out in China, and Mao, in a last-ditch effort to save the communism in China, has this cultural revolution where he calls on the young people to bring up arms, rebel against people in authority, and bring back a communist state. They have people basically in desk jobs that have to go work out in the fields. Not very effective. It's kind of the last-ditch effort, and just doesn't work out well for China. While Mao was president, he encouraged the Chinese people to have large families, but after he died, the communist leaders saw that this was going to be an economic and a resource problem for China if they were to sustain this level of population. And so they instituted the one-child policy, where a couple could only have one child. And if you had more than one child, either you would have a forced abortion, they would take the child from you, or you'd have to pay a heavy fine. And because we have this history of a patriarchal society, this strong history, little boys are more valued than women because the men were the ones who took care of the elderly, family names were passed through men, ancestor worship was passed through men, and so girls weren't valued, and so often if a couple had a girl, they would either kill her or give her up for adoption or just abandon her on the street. And this is going to have a number of social problems in China. We have a disproportionate number of men than women, and that leads to all sorts of marriage problems. Obviously you can't pair them off equally. And also it leads to something called Little Emperor Syndrome, where the boys, because they're the only child, are so spoiled that you have this entitled group of young men who are often overweight because they're just so spoiled and fed everything they want, that becomes a cultural problem as well. So that's kind of what's going on in China post-World War II to modern times. Today they have ended the one-child policy, and now you can have 2 children because they see the social problems it has caused. Communism is still the main form of government and economic policy in China, but kind of loosely based. They are part of the free market now, but government-wise, the government controls and censors everything in China. So that's all I have for you today. I'll see you next time.